The paper landed on the conference table at 2:14 on a Thursday afternoon. Stapled, double-sided, 147 items. Lorraine Pruitt had rehearsed this. You could tell, by the way, she straightened the stack before she started reading. My name is Roy Callahan. I'm 49 years old, and that Thursday afternoon was the best thing that ever happened to me. Let me back up. I'd been at Hargrove Industrial Group for 7 years, Senior Operations Analyst. Same title I walked in with. Not because I wasn't good enough to move up, I was. And everyone in that building knew it. The clients knew it. My regional director, Hank Delvey, knew it better than anyone. He just needed me exactly where I was, doing exactly what I was doing, with my name on as little of it as possible. Hargrove does operations consulting for mid-size manufacturers, the kind of companies that actually make things: metal components, industrial parts, supply chain work, not the kind of business where you can cover up bad work with a good slide deck. Sooner or later, the numbers are what they are. When I got there, the place was in trouble. Their biggest account, a materials supply company called Bowen, was threatening to walk. Quarterly reports were late, full of errors, and nobody seemed to know why. I watched Hank scramble for 2 weeks. Then I stayed in over a weekend, found the problem in their data collection process, rebuilt the tracking system, and left a one-page summary on Hank's desk Monday morning. He presented it to the client that afternoon like it was his own work. Bowen stayed. Hank got a commendation from the VP. That was year 1. Years 2 through 7 followed the same pattern. A fabrication plant in Central Ohio had a workflow bottleneck nobody could diagnose. I found it in 3 days. A client in the logistics sector was about to cancel a $400,000 contract over a reporting dispute. I pulled the source data, rebuilt the analysis, and resolved it in a week. When our main project management software crashed during a client audit, I rebuilt the output from backup files over a single weekend while everyone else was waiting for IT to respond. Every time I handed the solution to whoever needed it, every time my name disappeared from the result, I kept telling myself the work was what mattered. That being the guy who could fix anything was worth more than a title. That 7 years of results would eventually mean something. I kept telling myself that right up until Hank's son walked through the door. Cody Delvey was 26, fresh out of a business program, and had never spent a day on a plant floor in his life. Hank introduced him to the team on a Tuesday morning and announced that Cody would be taking on stretch assignments to accelerate his development. Everybody nodded. I noticed that 3 of the stretch assignments Hank mentioned were projects I'd been running for 2 years. I figured the kid would shadow me, learn the process, and I'd move on to the next problem. That was not what happened. What happened was Hank pulled the entire operations framework I'd built over 7 years, the methodology I'd developed client by client and problem by problem, and handed it to Cody as a foundation to work from. 2 weeks later, I sat in the 3rd row of a client presentation and watched Cody stand at the whiteboard using my framework to walk through a project scoping analysis. He got the terminology wrong on the 2nd slide. He couldn't answer a follow-up question about baseline variance. The client's operations manager glanced at me twice during the presentation with a look I recognized. The look that says, "Why isn't he up there?" After the meeting, I walked back to my desk and wrote down 7 numbers on a piece of yellow legal paper. 7 projects, the ones I could document clearly. Bowen, Lancaster, the fabrication audit, the 3 others. I folded the paper and put it in my jacket pocket. I didn't know exactly when I'd need it. I knew I would. About a month before Cody showed up, I'd received a call from a woman named Nadine Corwell, VP of Talent Acquisition at Vantage Operations Group. Vantage was Hargrove's main regional competitor. The firm that kept winning contracts, Hargrove kept losing. She said they'd been paying attention to performance patterns in the regional market for over a year. Every time Hargrove retained a major client, every time a proposal came in strong, she said there was one name that kept surfacing when she talked to people in the industry. Mine. The offer was real. $85,000 signing bonus, salary up, 1.8 times what I was making. My own team, a title that matched what I'd actually been doing for 7 years. I told her I needed time to think about it. Part of that was habit. I'd spent 7 years being the guy who didn't walk away from a problem halfway through, and I was right in the middle of a major audit for Bowen that I didn't want to hand off to someone who didn't know the account. That felt like a real reason. Looking back, part of it was also just stubbornness. 7 years is a long time to invest in something. It's hard to accept that the investment isn't going to pay out. So I stayed. I finished the Bowen audit. I watched Cody take over more of my project load. I kept my head down and told myself something would shift. Then Hank sent the calendar invite, mandatory team meeting, performance and collaboration review. Thursday at 2:00 p.m., I'd been to a dozen of those meetings. They were usually about communication workflows and cross-functional synergy and whatever phrase the VP had picked up at a conference that quarter. I showed up expecting the same thing. I walked in and found 17 people already seated around the table. Lorraine Pruitt was at the front next to Hank, a stack of printed pages in front of her. There was one chair set facing the rest of the room. Hank said, "Roy, have a seat." 3 months into my time at Vantage, Nadine dropped a folder on my desk without saying much. Cody Delvey presented to Fairfield Casting yesterday. She said, "Their ops director called us this morning." I opened the folder. There was a single printed email inside. The ops director at Fairfield, a guy named Walt Pruitt who'd been running that plant for 22 years, had written 3 paragraphs. The short version was this. Cody had walked in with a process audit framework, presented it like he'd built it from the ground up, and then couldn't answer a single question about how it actually worked. Walt wrote he used terminology he clearly didn't understand. When I asked him to walk me through the variance calculation in Section 4, he said he'd have to follow up. Section 4 is the whole point of the audit. I'd written Section 4. I didn't say that to Nadine. I just read the email twice, set it down, and told her I'd be happy to meet with Walt if he wanted to talk through what Fairfield actually needed. She smiled like she'd been waiting for me to say exactly that. Walt called me the next morning. He wasn't angry anymore, just tired in the way guys get when they've been dealing with people who don't know what they're doing for too long. "Roy, I've heard your name from 3 different people in this industry over the past year," he said. "Every time I asked how a plant got its numbers under control, somebody mentioned you. I didn't know you'd moved. I wish I'd known sooner." We met at his facility the following Tuesday. I walked the floor with him for 2 hours before we ever sat down to talk business. That's how you learn what a plant actually needs, not from a slide deck, from walking the floor and keeping your mouth shut long enough to see where the bottlenecks are. By the end of that meeting, Fairfield Casting was a Vantage client. That contract was worth $340,000 a year, smaller than Bowen, mattered more to me somehow. Because Walt Pruitt shook my hand and said, "I want to work with you specifically, not the firm, you." And he meant it as a compliment, not a condition. Around that same time, Earl Bowen called me about something that had nothing to do with his contract. Earl's a straight talker. Been running Bowen Materials for 31 years. Built it from a 2-truck operation into a regional supplier. He doesn't waste words. "I want to tell you something," he said. "When Hargrove told me last year that you were being transitioned off our account, I almost pulled the contract right then. They said it was a restructuring. Gave me some kid's name. I called over there twice and never heard back from him. I hadn't known that. Hargrove had told me Earl's account was being expanded when they moved it to Cody. They made it sound like a promotion for the account, not a demotion. I stayed because I didn't have anywhere better to go yet," Earl said. "The day I heard you'd landed at Vantage, I called you. You remember that?" I remembered. "That's not a coincidence, Roy. I want you to know that. I didn't follow the firm, I followed you. I've had a lot of conversations in 25 years of doing this work. That one stays with me. The satellite office opened on a Tuesday in March. Nothing dramatic about it. Movers brought furniture the Friday before. It got the systems running over the weekend. Monday was set up. Tuesday we opened the door. Nadine had pushed to make it a bigger moment. She wanted a ribbon cutting, maybe a small reception, invite a few clients. I told her I'd rather just start working. She gave me a look like I was exactly the problem I'd always been, then laughed and let it go. The building sits on Reimer Industrial Drive, 4 blocks east of Hargrove's office, same road their clients drive every day on the way to meetings. Our sign went up Tuesday morning. Vantage Operations Group, Regional Office, Roy Callahan, Senior Director. By 10 a.m., I could see Hargrove's building from my window. Gray brick. Same parking lot I'd pulled into for 7 years. I looked at it for about 30 seconds, then turned back to my desk. There was work to do. The first week, 3 former Hargrove clients came through our door for introductory meetings, none of them solicited. All of them referrals from people I'd worked with over the years. Word travels in a regional industrial market. People talk to each other at supplier conferences, at chamber events, in parking lots after site visits. When somebody they trusted moved, they wanted to know where he landed. By the end of month 2, we had 6 active client accounts in the regional office alone. Nadine started talking about adding a second analyst. I told her to wait until we had the workflow stabilized. No point hiring ahead of the process. She gave me the same look again. Hank called on a Wednesday afternoon in April. I almost didn't pick up. I recognized the number from the 2 calls he'd made in the months after I left, one about the non-compete that didn't exist, one about Granger that went nowhere. This was the 3rd call. I picked up. "Roy," he paused like he was choosing words carefully. "I want to be straight with you. Things have been difficult since you left. I think you know that. I didn't say anything. I let him keep going. We lost some accounts we didn't expect to lose. The Cody situation didn't work out the way I'd planned. I'm not calling to relitigate anything. I'm calling because there are two clients who specifically asked if there was any way to bring you back into their process, even in a consulting capacity, not full-time. He named them. I knew both accounts. I'd built both relationships from scratch. Hank, I said, I appreciate the call, I genuinely do, but those clients know where I am now. If they want to work with me, they know how to reach me directly. I don't think there's a role for Hargrove in that conversation. Silence. Okay, he said finally. I understand. Good luck with things over there, I said, and I meant it. Not sarcastically, not generously. Just, I meant it the way you mean it when something is finally over and you don't have anything left to prove. I hung up and went back to the Fairfield audit I'd been working on before the call. It's been almost 2 years now. The regional office has 14 people, good ones. The kind who ask questions instead of waiting to be told what to do. Hargrove is still operating, smaller than before. Hank isn't the regional director anymore. Lorraine left. Dale Ferris is apparently still there, which doesn't surprise me. Every morning I drive down Reimer Industrial Drive and pass their building on the way in. Same road, different direction. That's enough for me. If you've been the guy who kept everything running while somebody else took the credit, you already know everything I just told you. You've lived some version of it. The only thing I'd add is this. Start writing things down. What you built, what you fixed, what would have collapsed without you. Not for revenge, just so you know. Because one day you're going to need to remember exactly what you're worth, and don't wait as long as I did to make the call. There's something nobody tells you about starting over at 49. It's not hard the way people expect it to be hard. It's not the learning curve or the new systems or the different office politics. That stuff you figure out fast. What's actually hard is unlearning the habit of making yourself small. 7 years at Hargrove, I'd gotten good at disappearing into the work. Head down, problem solved, no noise. That was the job. I thought it was a virtue. Turns out it was a trap. At Vantage, Nadine kept pushing me to be visible in ways I wasn't used to show up at the industry conference. Put your name on the methodology write-up. Let the clients know it was your framework that fixed their numbers, not just the firm. Every time she brought it up, my instinct was to push back. I'd say something like the work speaks for itself. She'd look at me the way someone looks at a guy who just said something that used to be true. Roy, she said one afternoon, the work only speaks for itself if people know who built it. I sat with that for a while. The framework situation came to a head about 4 months after I started at Vantage. Nadine had connected with a lawyer who handled intellectual property for consulting firms, a woman named Faye Osterman based in Columbus. Faye had reviewed the methodology documents I'd brought with me, the ones I'd photographed the morning I cleaned out my desk at Hargrove. She called me on a Thursday. Roy, I want to walk you through what I'm looking at, she said. You have dated internal emails referencing this framework going back 6 years. You have revision histories on documents you created. You have client correspondence where you explain the methodology in your own words before it was ever formally adopted by Hargrove. I told her I'd kept records because I was thorough, not because I was planning anything. I understand that, she said. But what you kept amounts to a paper trail that establishes authorship. If you wanted to formalize this, attach your name to it professionally, there's a legitimate path to do that. I asked her what that meant practically. She explained it plainly, not a patent in the traditional sense. Consulting methodologies don't work that way, but a documented, time-stamped authorship record combined with Vantage, adopting it formally under my name would create a professional record that was difficult to dispute. Anyone in the industry asking who built this framework would get a clear answer. I told her to move forward. 6 weeks later, Vantage published a white paper, the Callahan Operations Audit Framework, a methodology for mid-size industrial manufacturers. My name, my work. On record, Nadine sent me a copy with a note. About time, I found out about the white paper reaching Hargrove in the least dramatic way possible. Lorraine Pruitt emailed me, not Hank, Lorraine, the woman who'd stood at the front of that conference room and read 107 reasons why I didn't belong there. The email was 3 sentences. She said she'd seen the white paper circulating in the industry. She said she wanted me to know she'd been thinking about the meeting. She said she was sorry for her part in it. I read it twice. Then I wrote back 4 words. I appreciate you saying that. I don't know what she expected, maybe more, but that was all I had for her, and it was honest. She left Hargrove 2 weeks later. I heard it through Earl Bowen, who heard it from somebody at a supplier meeting. I didn't ask for details. The conference was in October. Mid-Ohio Industrial Operations Summit, about 340 people, manufacturers and consultants and suppliers from across the region. I'd skipped it for years because Hank always went and I didn't want to spend 2 days standing next to him pretending everything was fine. This year, Nadine had put me on the program. Panel discussion, Thursday afternoon, operational efficiency in regional manufacturing, what actually works. I'd done panels before, but not like this. Not where my name was the reason people showed up. There were 4 of us on the panel. I knew 2 of them from years of working in the same regional market. The third was a professor from Ohio State who studied supply chain systems. Good guy. Knew the theory cold, hadn't spent much time on an actual plant floor. About 20 minutes in, the moderator asked each of us to describe a methodology we'd used successfully with clients. The professor talked for 4 minutes about a framework he'd published in an academic journal. Solid work, completely untranslatable to a plant floor without significant modification. When it was my turn, I described the audit process I'd built, the same one that was now formally documented under my name. I kept it practical. What the problem usually looks like, where people look first and why that's usually wrong. What Section 4 actually measures and why variance calculation is where you find the real answers. Halfway through, I noticed people in the audience writing things down. After the panel, 6 people came up to me directly. 4 of them were plant managers or operations directors. 2 of them became Vantage clients within 90 days. Walt Pruitt was in the audience. He found me afterward, shook my hand, and said, "I've been telling people about you for a year. Nice to see the rest of them finally catching up." The last thing I'll tell you happened on a Friday in November. I was locking up the regional office, last one out. Same as always when I noticed a car parked across the street, sitting there with the engine off. I recognized it because I'd seen it in the Hargrove parking lot for 7 years. Hank's car, he wasn't doing anything, just sitting there. Engine off, lights off, looking at our building. At the sign, I stood at the door for a moment. He didn't see me. I thought about walking over. I thought about what I'd say if I did. Nothing came to me that was worth saying. Everything that needed to happen had already happened. The clients had made their choice. The framework had my name on it. The office was open and running and full of people who showed up every morning because the work meant something. I locked the door, walked to my truck, and drove home. I didn't look back. If you're the guy who's been carrying a place on your back for years doing the work 3 people should be doing, fixing problems nobody officially assigned you, keeping clients who would have walked without you, I want to ask you something directly. What are you waiting for? Not to blow everything up, not to burn it down, but to start treating your own work the way your best clients already treat it. Like it has value, like it has an author, like it belongs to you, not to whoever signs your check. Write it down, put your name on it. And when the call comes, and it will come, pick up. That's the whole toolbox. Drop a comment if any of this landed close to home. I read every one. And if you're not subscribed yet, there's a button somewhere on this page. Use it. More stories like this every week. 6 months after the conference, Nadine called me into her office and closed the door. That's never a casual gesture. When Nadine closes the door, she's about to say something she's been thinking about for a while. She sat down, put her hands flat on the desk, and said, "I want to talk to you about what comes next." I'd been at Vantage 14 months at that point. The regional office was running well. 14 people, 6 anchor clients, revenue tracking ahead of projection. By any measure, the thing we'd built was working. "There's a conversation happening at the partner level," she said, about expanding the regional model to 2 more markets, Pittsburgh and Cincinnati. Same structure, senior director, dedicated team, local client base. I asked her why she was telling me, because you'd be overseeing both of them, not running them day to day, building the framework for how they operate, training the directors we hire, making sure what works here gets replicated correctly and not just copied badly. I sat with that for a moment. "That's a different job than what I'm doing now," I said. "Yes," she said, "it is. I'd spent 25 years being the guy who fixed things and handed them off, the guy behind the work. This was something else. This was putting my name not just on a methodology, but on an entire operating model, teaching other people to use it, being accountable for how it ran in rooms I wasn't sitting in." I told her I needed a week. She nodded like she'd expected exactly that answer. I spent that week the way I spend most problems, quietly, on my own time, working through it from the edges inward. I drove out to the Fairfield casting plant on a Tuesday morning, not for a meeting, just to walk the floor. Walt Pruitt found me out by the press line and fell into step beside me without asking why I was there. That's the thing about Walt. He reads a room fast and he doesn't make a production out of things. We walked for about 40 minutes, talked about his expansion plans, a new line he was adding in the spring, a supplier relationship that was causing him headaches 3 months running. At some point he said, without looking at me, "You thinking about moving on again?" I told him about the Pittsburgh and Cincinnati conversation. He was quiet for a minute, then he said, "Roy, the reason this works, you and me, this whole thing, is because you actually understand what happens on this floor, not from a report." From standing here, I told him I knew that. So the question is whether you can teach somebody else to do that, or whether what you do is the kind of thing that only works when you're the one doing it. I drove back to Columbus thinking about that for 2 hours. The answer I kept coming back to was this: the framework works because it was built from the floor up. Every piece of it came from a real problem in a real plant. It wasn't theoretical. It wasn't adapted from something designed for a different industry. It was built here, in this region, for exactly the kind of manufacturers I'd been working with for a decade. That meant it could be taught. Not easily, not fast, but it could be taught to the right person. The question was finding the right person. I called Nadine on Friday afternoon. "I'll do it," I said, on one condition. I choose the directors for Pittsburgh and Cincinnati, not HR, not the partners, me. I interview them, I make the call, and if I'm not confident in someone, we wait until I am. Silence on her end. Not hesitation, she was writing something down. "Done," she said. The Pittsburgh hire took 3 months. I interviewed 11 people, turned down 7. 2 removed themselves after the second conversation. I think they figured out the job was harder than the title implied. The 11th person I talked to was a woman named Sheila Graves, 15 years running operations for a mid-sized steel fabricator outside of Allentown. She'd relocated to Pittsburgh 2 years earlier for family reasons and was doing independent consulting at a rate that was below what she was worth. First conversation. 40 minutes, she asked me better questions than most people I'd worked with for years. She wanted to know how the variance calculation in Section 4 handled outlier data from plants with irregular production cycles. She'd clearly read the white paper. Closely, I hired her. Cincinnati took another 6 weeks. Guy named Nolan Price, former plant manager turned consultant, knew the Ohio manufacturing corridor. The way I knew Columbus, every client, every supplier relationship, every facility that had changed hands in the last decade. He was 54, done with corporate, and looking for something that matched what he actually knew how to do. Second interview, he pulled out a copy of my white paper with handwritten notes in the margins. I hired him too. We ran the first joint training session in January. All 3 offices. Sheila flew in from Pittsburgh. Nolan drove up from Cincinnati. We spent 2 days in a conference room at the Vantage headquarters going through the framework piece by piece. What I remember most about those 2 days is that I spent more time listening than talking. Sheila caught an assumption in Section 2 that I'd never questioned because every plant I'd worked with in Columbus happened to share it. She was right. We revised the section before the training ended. Nolan had a variation on the client intake process that was simpler than mine and produced the same result in half the time. We adopted it across all 3 offices. By the end of day 2, the framework was better than when we'd started. That's not something I expected. I'd gone in thinking I was teaching them. I left having learned something from both of them. I told Nadine that on the drive home, she said, "That's how you know you hired the right people." There's a version of this story where I'm the hero who rode out of Hargrove and built an empire while my enemies watched from across the street. That's not what happened. What happened is that I finally ended up in a place where the work I did had my name on it, where the people around me made the work better instead of taking it, where I was allowed to be exactly as good as I actually was, not threatening to anyone, not invisible to everyone, just useful in a way that got acknowledged. That's not an empire. That's just a decent place to spend your working years. I'm 49 years old. If I'm lucky, I've got 15 or 20 more years of doing this at full capacity. I plan to use them. If you've spent years being the guy who makes everything work while someone else's name goes on the door, you don't need me to explain what that costs. You already know what I'll tell you is this: the skills that made you invisible in the wrong place are the exact same skills that make you indispensable in the right one. Nothing about you needs to change. The address does. Stop waiting for the place you're at to finally see what you're worth. Start building the record that proves it. Write down what you built. Keep the documentation. Answer the call when it comes. You put in the years, make sure the next ones go somewhere that deserves them.